Somehow the world is melting even more than it was yesterday. We have everything jam-packed in you guys for this video today. Sorry I'm not on camera again. I am away with my family. I know you all probably missed my pretty face, but I will be back very, very soon. We have everything from what's going on in Bangladesh and how they are hunting down Hindus. We have the UK is absolutely imploding and people are being arrested for literal Facebook comments. You have Pierre Poilievre who wants to tax China on electric vehicles. You have a big dog killing a small dog in Stanley Park here in British Columbia. You have an update on the floods that are happening. You have an update on forest fires. You have a whole lot of news. You have a man who won women's sports in boxing at the Olympics, gold medal. You also have the Canadian men's 4x100 relay standing in solidarity for men in men's sports, women in women's sports. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. And without further ado, let's get into it. So, what's going on in Bangladesh? Hindus are trying to flee because you have Muslims that are hunting them down. Hundreds of Hindus have tried unsuccessfully to flee in India this week, and many homes and businesses of the minority community were vandalized following the overthrow of the Prime Minister. The Bangladesh Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council said that 45 out of 64 districts in the country had seen the targeting of mostly Hindu homes, businesses, and temples. And some people have died and a lot of people have been hurt. And we have some atrocious videos that are surfacing of the attacks. You have Hindus running, families fleeing into cars as they're being chased literally for their life and safety by Muslims. This is wild. There's a call for genocide that seems to be happening over in Bangladesh. You also have Joe Rogan, who is in the news for apparently endorsing but not endorsing RFK Jr. And everybody really wants the exact same thing. We all want Trump on Joe Rogan's podcast. Now, Joe Rogan has come out and corrected the statements of what he said on his podcast. He said, for the record, this isn't an endorsement. This is me saying that I like RFK Jr. as a person, and I really appreciate the way he discusses things with civility and intelligence. I think we could use more of that in this world. I also think Trump raising his fist and saying fight after getting shot is one of the most American effing things that have happened in all of time. I'm not the guy to get political information from, but if you want that from a comedian, go to comic Dave Smith. He actually knows what he's talking about. Let's take a look at what Joe Rogan actually said in his podcast clip.
That's just what they do. That's politics. They do it on the left. They do it on the right. They gaslight you. They manipulate you. They promote narratives. And the only one who's not doing that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
You a fan?
Yeah, I am a fan. Yeah, he's the only one that makes sense to me. He's the only one that he doesn't attack people. He attacks actions and ideas, but he's much more reasonable and intelligent. I mean, the guy was an environmental attorney and cleaned up the East River. I mean, he's a legitimate guy. You know, before anybody started calling him an anti-vaxxer, which I thought he was too. I thought he was this nut, this like conspiracy theorist nut, until I read his book. I read The Real Anthony Fauci, and I'm like, what is it? How much of this?
So what's really frustrating, especially for myself, I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I love watching his podcasts. I usually put them on Spotify right before I go to sleep, and I put like a 30 or 45-minute timer on, is that he considers himself a non-biased person. Joe Rogan claims, or at least he has in the past, if I'm not mistaken, made the claims that he likes to bring people on the podcast and he just likes to be a neutral standpoint. He likes to kind of challenge people and their viewpoints. But for some reason, he doesn't want Donald Trump on. Now, if I do remember correctly, it's because he has made the claim that he doesn't want to give Donald Trump that platform, which is extremely, extremely frustrating because Joe Rogan has those conservative values that Donald Trump possesses and promotes. I mean, he's self-sufficient. He is capable of living off-grid. He hunts. He's an advocate for law-abiding firearm owners in America. He's an advocate for, you know, the only people that should be voting are legal tax-paying American citizens, pro-America, 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 right? Joe Rogan is very pro-America. I mean, you see it all the time in his podcast and his commentary on UFC. And Dana White, who he works for or gets contracted through UFC, is very good friends with Donald Trump. So it's very frustrating. And I think everyone just wants Joe Rogan to have Donald Trump on the podcast. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Next up, we have an update with the UK. So, government of the UK actually said this: think before you post. This is their official account. And that is really, really scary because, I mean, what's happening is there are protests that are basically erupting all across the UK. You have immigration has been rampant, just like here in Canada. And a lot of immigrants are causing insane amounts of crime. And so you have people that are protesting against immigration, anti-immigration protests, pro-UK protesters. And it's gotten so bad that you have immigrants or Muslims or whoever that are masking themselves in the streets with bats, knives, and machetes that are hunting down what seems to be with zero repercussions at all from law enforcement all of these anti-immigrant protesters. And there's massive clashes that are happening. And it's very strange because Jagmeet Singh, who is a Canadian politician for any Americans that don't know, he is in support of the police brutality against the they're calling it anti-racist protesters, but it's just very, very bizarre. So Jagmeet, his takes are always, whatever he's promoting as good, it's usually the opposite. It's pretty consistent with that. When racist mobs try to terrorize their neighbors, good people rise up. That's not at all what's happening. People are rising up out of because the fact that there's too much immigrant crime. It's not racist. That's a fact, you dumb idiot Canadian politician. What's happening in the UK is a reminder of this. Here in Canada, those of us that believe in lifting each other up will always outnumber those that seek to tear us apart. And so no matter your race, religion, or sexuality, our movement will always hold space for you. When we fight back, we win. And he's absolutely getting destroyed in the comments. I mean, you can see he only has 500 likes and over 600 comments. That's called being ratioed. And then people are sharing these photos of heaps and heaps of Muslims in the streets of Toronto where it's not even recognizable. And then you have other videos that are surfacing of the government of UK promoting the fact that they are just cracking down on things. It's super funny. So in this video, if you're planning on visiting the UK this summer, please check if you need a UK visa. And then you have, I mean, they've only got 160 likes on that post. And you have Donut Operator, who's a massive YouTuber and influencer, say, nah, I'll either get stabbed or arrested for my Twitter history. Also, your food sucks as much as your government. Eat a bag of dicks. And that, which is absolutely hilarious. And all of the comments are super funny. And now we're going to be taking a look at this photo right there. So right here, you have a man jailed in the UK for commenting on a Facebook post about riots where he said, "You filthy bastards." That's what he said on a post on Facebook, and the police have arrested him, and he's apparently going to seek 12 weeks in prison, which is insane, especially when you stack it up against other people that have committed crimes, such as this guy right here, where the courthouse is refusing, the judge is refusing to send a child sex offender to prison, but they'll send somebody who replied on Facebook saying filthy bastards. That is absolutely insane. No wonder the UK is just melting down. And now we're going to take a look at some Canadian stuff. So, of course, normally I like to start off the videos with Canadian news, but it's taken so long because of all the American stuff. So here we go. Update in the polls. Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre sitting at 212 projected seats. Bottom line 179. Top end of 232. And then you have Justin Trudeau and the Liberals at 69 seats, and they are just falling. They are rapidly, folks, falling down. down. And then, of course, 99% across the board likely to win the most seats for the Conservatives and for a majority government. So everything is looking really good right there. And what's not looking good are these floods that are happening across Canada here on the west coast. So debris from the landslide continues flowing through the Fraser River, which is insane because these are all logs down here. And these are like 40, 50, 60-foot logs, and they look tiny at this elevation. Let's take a look at this video here.
Flowing water and massive amounts of debris started to flow into the Fraser River after a landslide had impacted the Chilcotin River last week. Wednesday afternoon, the province provided an update saying water flows peaked Tuesday night in the Fraser River. They have decreased significantly Wednesday morning, while inflows and outflows near the site of the landslide are starting to return to normal. Along with the positive decrease in water flow, provincial officials announced that approximately 30,000 cubic meters of woody debris has been removed between Hope and Agassiz by the Fraser River debris trap. While the trap continues to catch debris from the landslide, it's still making its way down the Fraser River. Muddy waters and large amounts of logs were seen west of the Fraser Regional District by Metro Vancouver Emergency Services Wednesday afternoon, and experts remain on site to continue to remove debris from the Fraser. The province says there is a continued increased risk of additional landslides and bank erosion on the Chilcotin from the blockage to the confluence, while a number of communities along the Fraser have shut down their waterfront to the public. People are still advised to stay away from potential flood areas due to risk of slopes failing and being swept away by the water that is still riddled with debris from the slide. In Vancouver, Joe Sadowski, City News.
Absolutely crazy, and anyone who is driving there, you're advised to stay away as far as possible from the Fraser River because of what is going on. And in other news, not too far away, you have an update on the new ignition of some more fires here in BC.
Wildfire officials are bracing for another unpredictable weekend as thunderstorms are expected to move through the province. Lightning is already the main cause of the hundreds of fires burning right now. And on the North Shore, the fire danger rating is rated high. CTV's Craig Krause has more.
Hot and dry conditions persist across Metro Vancouver. Forest beds drying up, triggering a high fire danger rating along the North Shore.
When it's high, certainly we have to be a little more conscious of our actions.
Putting out cigarettes and avoiding open flames as local fire departments work to stunt chaos in the area.
Just take extra care to make sure you're not adding to the problem.
As the North Shore prepares for potential fires, the province is grappling with more than 350 blazes, a good chunk out of control, as 1,600 plus firefighters try to suppress the flames.
The Kamloops and Southeast fire centers have the most fire load currently, but we are expecting the changing and warming conditions to impact all regions of the province.
A severe thunderstorm watch now stretching from the Fraser Canyon to the Nicola and South Thompson regions. Birkenhead Lake Park, northwest of Pemberton, closing as a wildfire burns on the mountainside. 26 firefighters and 2 helicopters deployed as the province tries to get a grip on another frantic summer.
So things could go anywhere from here.
Wildfire researcher and sustainability.
And this is what's so bizarre and what a lot of Canadians just aren't agreeing with. We pay so much money in this carbon tax scheme, and yet what are the results? We don't have anything to show for. We don't have any new equipment. We are not hiring any more firefighters. We're just left with basically less money in our pockets, and the exact same thing that has happened for the past 25, 50, 75 years is still going on. As you heard at the start of the video, the main cause for all of these fires is lightning. There is no amount of taxes that is going to stop lightning from happening. It's always going to happen. That is what you call Mother Nature. But yes, sure, let's continue increasing our taxes, everybody. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Now, this is very interesting here. You have an RCMP officer who's in the hospital after being injured in BC. Hit and run. This is not going to end well for the person who is on the run. You may not agree with the police, but condoning violence is obviously not acceptable. Let's take a look at the video here.
Breaking news to start us off tonight. A member of the RCMP is in hospital after being struck on the job by a hit-and-run driver. Lauren Pullen is following this in the Breaking News Center. Lauren, a big development in this case tonight.
Certainly is, Nafisa. RCMP searched for that suspect driver for much of the day, and late this afternoon, police tell us he was caught and arrested. Mounties say the officer was hit by a blue Infiniti G35 just before 11:30 this morning on 208th Street and 50A Avenue. The RCMP officer was taken to hospital with what are believed to be non-life-threatening injuries. Police are now thanking bystanders for jumping in to help that Mountie, providing medical aid, and
I'm sure that guy will have the exact same respect and treatment that every other criminal gets in jail. I'm sure that police brutality, beating up cops, or in this case, a hit and run on a police officer, won't get him a bunch of enemies in jail. That is not a good thing to do. And obviously be careful anywhere you're driving on the highway when cops are pulling over people on the right. The standard thing in Canada is moving into the left lane. Now, in other news here, in very weird news, you have this dog that's on the screen has died. It's been killed in Stanley Park in Vancouver, which is very, very strange. And the person who had this dog, or who had the dog that is now being searched for by thousands of people, including, I believe, the police and local law enforcement, they fled the scene. Let's take a look at this video here.
Felt like 3 to 5 minutes of just torture and agony.
When Sky was finally released, video captures this suspected owner leashing the dog and fleeing.
Stop! Stop her!
Despite attempts from Good Samaritans to get her to remain on scene, the woman scrambles away.
I think at the end of the day, it has happened. Whether Sky had lived or passed on, I think that's a coward move to just run off.
Now, days after the Monday attack, despite online attention and news coverage, the city's Animal Services Department says the owner hasn't come forward.
I would sort of put this at the same bar as if someone is involved in a traffic incident and you leave the scene.
There should be some consequences for her. I mean, a dog died.
There likely will be some consequences. Fleeing the scene is not a good look, especially that the fact that the dog seems to be that, pit bull-esque type of breed. Now, look, I'm a massive dog fan. Dogs are my favorite animal, right? I've always had a dog. I've always had a family dog, and I was extremely devastated, and still to this day am devastated for my beautiful husky that passed away from cancer at the age of 5 years old. That happened only a few months ago. It's been still very hard on my family and I, and so when I see things like this, it just really sucks, because the dog did commit the act, but also it just goes to show that this is why training your dog is so important. This is why making sure that your dog is socialized is so important. I can't believe we're talking about the importance of training your dog in Canadian news or even on this YouTube channel, but here we are when you're off leash at a on leash area. This is this is what could happen. It's just absolutely devastating for the family that lost their dog, and probably the fact that the dog that committed this is going to get put down. That really sucks, and that's very irresponsible by that dog owner, and goes to show how irresponsible they are by fleeing the scene. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. In other news, we have Pierre Poilievre now, who is going after China. He wants to put tariffs on them for electric vehicles. This is a very interesting tactic. Let's take a look at this.
This is a big strategic play, both in terms of economic policy, trade policy, but also in terms of, frankly, political strategy and wanting to get votes in places like Hamilton. So let's set the politics aside, talk the policy first. Earlier this summer, Chrysler Freeland announced a consultation about whether Canada should fall in line with tariff policy coming out of Washington, calling for a major tariff to be put on Chinese electric vehicles. And in fact, the Washington tariffs don't stop with just EVs. They actually cover a whole lot of things, including raw steel and aluminum, semiconductors, solar panels, a long list of Chinese products coming into the U.S. Mexico fell into into line. Canada to date had not. But the consultation period ended at the end of July. We are waiting to hear what the Trudeau government has decided to do on this front. But yesterday in Ottawa, we had the heads of the steel and aluminum sectors lobbying, saying, look, we cannot be left out on this. We need to be inside kind of the tariff wall in the NAFTA zone and all have matching tariffs to make sure we're acting as one to prevent a flood of cheap Chinese products from coming in and threatening domestic industries. Now, into the fray comes Opposition Leader Pierre Poilievre today, stepping up to say that a Conservative government would be matching those tariffs that the Biden administration is putting in place mere weeks from now. Here's a clip from Pierre Poilievre's news conference today, and I should note he was speaking at the Stelco facility in Hamilton.
Justin Trudeau and sellout Singh want to give taxpayer-funded subsidies for buying Chinese-made cars, while they impose tax penalties on the manufacturing of Canadian-made cars.
And of course, the penalties he's talking about includes the carbon tax, not necessarily about the announcement here, but we certainly know how the Conservative government feels about that. Let's look.
This is absolutely crazy that Pierre Poilievre, who's the leader of the opposition, seems to be the only politician that is running right now who is pro-Canada. Tax the living hell out of other countries when we have deals with them. Make sure that we only have the cream of the crop, goods coming in and people coming in, and make sure that we are pro-Canada. It's all about Canada, Canada, Canada. How does Canada benefit? We need someone who is prime minister who has that nationalist agenda and mentality. And Pierre Poilievre does have his faults. That's a personal opinion, and maybe some people agree, maybe some people don't. But we're not going to get into those faults right now in this video. But nonetheless, we need someone who is pro-Canada, who looks forward to Canada being first. And I think that on the other spectrum, you have Justin Trudeau, who's pro-Justin Trudeau, where he's gone so far into the pro-Canada that he's singled himself out to the point where he's so narcissistic that everything he does is to personally benefit himself, not Canadians or Canada. It's himself living in Canada, which is very, very bizarre. Let me know if you guys agree with Pierre Poilievre and the idea of adding tariffs on Chinese EVs. Are you with it? Are you against it? Let me know why. And then in other news, we have a terrorist attack that was spotted before it happened at a Taylor Swift concert. Now, why are we talking about a terrorist attack potentially happening at a Taylor Swift concert? I will get to that in a moment. I promise it's relevant to Canada. But let's take a look at this video here.
Night in the foiled terrorist attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. Investigators say a 19-year-old who recently quit his job was prepared to kill himself and many others. And another teen who was arrested recently took a job at a Taylor Swift concert venue. CTV's Alison Bamford on the reaction from Swift's fans and the impact on her tour.
A dream come true for Addison Stastuk's 11th birthday turned into a nightmare.
It was disappointing, but it was nice that, we were all going through it.
News of
All right, so there was a planned terrorist attack that was going to use chemical warfare and launch it at the concert venue. And Taylor Swift's security detail had acknowledged this, and so what did they do? They canceled all of the concerts, and I don't know, must have issued refunds or scheduled at a later date, TBD. And so why is that relevant to Canada? Well, it's just very interesting that Taylor Swift, a musician, right? Just a musician. She's not a political leader. She doesn't run a country. She's got a lot of money. Very hypocritical, right? Left-leaning, I believe, person, yet, expels a tremendous amount of carbon into the air. And nonetheless, it's a different story. What's her history? Well, let's take a look right now at Canada. So Canada, there's a lot of people that are saying that it's become a safe haven for terrorists. And the question is, do you actually believe that? Well, the consensus is pretty much yes. Many countries look upon Canada as being a welcoming country for terrorists, war criminals, and so on. And this individual right here, Bill Barr, he used to be the former member of the Canadian Immigration and Refugee Board. He's the one that is answering this. And he says what I just mentioned and what is about to follow. I don't think it is a deliberate policy on the part of Canada. I think it is the result of a series of shortcomings in the system that enables people to slip across the border through any port of entry. And then it goes on to give a very specific case. And so what does this have to do with it? Canadians were allowing terrorism or terrorists to come into Canada. Taylor Swift caught onto it before any Canadian government was able to do that. That's kind of the segue into how this ties into Canada. And the only person or the only party that's calling to act on the very, very recent acts of or potential acts of terror are Andrew Scheer and the Conservative government. For those that don't know, there was a father and son that were planning a act of terror in Toronto, and they were arrested by the RCMP in conjunction with CSIS, if I'm not mistaken. And then when they look back at how these people got into Canada, they've been living here for years, for crying out loud. There's even an old video of, allegedly, of these people beheading people, Americans or civilians around the world. Out in the Middle East, they were beheading them or complicit in the beheading of people in older ISIS videos, and they got into Canada. They didn't just get here on a plane and stay for a week or two. They stayed here for years. They established roots. This is absolutely insane. So why is Taylor Swift able to see this happening, yet a Canadian government, is not able to? This is why everyone's heads are spinning. And what does Justin Trudeau have to say about it? Well, nothing. He doesn't say anything about it because he's a fan of Taylor Swift. Years ago, well, not even years ago, last year in 2023, Justin Trudeau had responded to a Swift tweet before it was rebranded to X, which paraphrased the lyrics from her own songs, posting, "It's me, hi. I know places in Canada that would love to have you, so don't make it another cruel summer. We hope to see you soon." And that's the only thing that Justin Trudeau has said about Taylor Swift. He has not commented on Taylor Swift's ability to spot terrorism way before it happens and prevent it from happening and not putting anyone in danger and canceling everyone's attendance at the venue, mitigating all risks. No, Justin Trudeau is incompetent. He allows terrorists to come here, and that's why he won't ever get voted in again. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. In Olympic news, you have the XY chromosome athlete, the boxer, the woman boxer, male boxer, XY chromosome boxer that won gold in women's boxing. And this is something that South Park predicted many, many years ago, but this is something more importantly that people are very, very outraged about. And then you have the Canadian athletes that apparently they did this XX symbol with their arms, which means XX chromosomes, and it was these male Canadian athletes who won gold in this relay, by the way, and they were showing solidarity for the female athletes by throwing up the XX. That is the narrative. Let me know if you guys have heard anything different. And then you have this post that has gained a lot of traction on X, saying, "I cannot stress enough how absolutely inappropriate it would be for a man to be touching an Algerian woman," who this individual claims to be, "in public. There is simply no way an Algerian woman would be touched like this by men in public." It's literally the definition of it's the literal definition of haram. And that is a very good point. Men and women do not touch like this in public. It is very, very much frowned upon. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you support this individual winning gold in women's boxing, or do you think it is an abomination? That, ladies and gentlemen, is where we're going to end this video. I would love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And on your way out, I would like to encourage you guys to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.